Uneducated. The word hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving, slicing through the classroom like a cold wind. Mrs. Wallace's voice was steady, controlled, but beneath it lay years of judgment and dismissal, coated in a casual cruelty that had gone unchallenged for too long. Her eyes scanned the room, as if daring anyone to disagree. The word wasn't just an insult. It was a wall, a barrier meant to define who belonged and who didn't. Jamal sat rigid in his seat, the weight of the accusation pressing down on him like a stone, his hands clenched quietly in his lap. The sting wasn't just in the words, but in the quiet acceptance that sometimes came from those around him. A few students shifted nervously, some looked away, others stared, unsure whether to intervene or stay silent. Then the door creaked open. Jamal's mother entered, her presence calm but commanding. She didn't rush or shout. She simply stood tall, a steady force in the room's sudden stillness. Her eyes locked onto Mrs. Wallace's, unwavering and clear. Uneducated? Her voice was soft, but carried the weight of steel. Maybe you don't know, but I run NASA. A collective gasp seemed to ripple through the students. The classroom's atmosphere shifted instantly. The balance of power, long assumed, tilted on its axis. Mrs. Wallace's lips pressed together. Her confident mask faltered as silence enveloped the space. Jamal looked at his mother, a surge of pride swelling within him. Pride not from confrontation, but from the quiet dignity she brought with her. A dignity that spoke louder than any shout. The moment stretched, suspended between what was said and what remained unsaid, an unspoken declaration that respect was not given lightly, but earned through truth and presence. Mrs. Wallace's eyes flickered, and for a moment, the sharp edge in her voice dulled. The room felt heavier now, charged with a tension that went beyond words. The students, once caught between discomfort and curiosity, now leaned in, as if drawn by the unspoken shift in power. Jamal sat taller, chest swelling with a quiet strength that surprised even himself. You think because of where we come from, who we are, that we're less, Jamal's mother continued, her voice steady but carrying a weight that made everyone listen. That's the real ignorance. A boy near the back cleared his throat, breaking the silence. But how can she run NASA? Isn't that... it's so hard, right? Jamal's mother smiled gently, not dismissing the question, but embracing it as an opportunity. It's hard for everyone who dares to try, but I didn't let anyone's doubts stop me, and neither should you. Mrs. Wallace shifted uncomfortably, her arms folding tightly. She opened her mouth, but the words stuck, caught between defensiveness and uncertainty. The classroom, once a place of silent judgment, was now a space where quiet dignity spoke volumes. Jamal's eyes met those of his classmates. In that moment, he wasn't just the boy who was bullied, or the one who carried a medal. He was a symbol of something bigger, a challenge to assumptions, a call to see beyond surface. The teacher finally spoke, her voice softer. Maybe it's time we all learned something new. A ripple of nods and murmurs followed, small but significant. Jamal's mother gave him a reassuring glance, a silent promise that this fight was worth it, that the truth had a power no insult could break. Jamal breathed in deeply. For the first time in a long while, he felt the weight on his shoulders lighten, not because the world had changed overnight, but because he had found his voice. Jamal sat quietly at his desk, the classroom buzzing with the restless energy of students packing their bags, but for him everything felt still, as if the world had slowed to hold its breath. The words his mother had spoken echoed in his mind, cutting through the noise. I run NASA. A phrase so simple, yet so powerful, reshaping the story he'd carried for too long. Mrs. Wallace shuffled papers at her desk, avoiding Jamal's gaze. The confidence she once wielded like a weapon had faltered, replaced by an uneasy silence that spoke louder than any apology could. A few students glanced at Jamal differently now, a mix of respect and curiosity, softening their earlier judgment. Some whispered among themselves, while others simply watched, absorbing the moment's gravity. Jamal's hands tightened around his UFC medal, tucked beneath his shirt, a symbol of battles fought beyond these walls. Not just in the ring, but in a world that often tried to define him by his skin, his background, his silence. Ms. Daniels approached quietly, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "You stood strong today," she said softly. "Sometimes strength is about speaking, even when your voice shakes." Jamal nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in his throat. "I just want to be seen for who I am, not what they expect me to be." She smiled warmly. "And you will be. Change starts with moments like this, quiet, powerful, and true." The bell rang, signaling the end of the day. Jamal stood, a new resolve lighting his eyes. The fight wasn't over, but now he carried more than a medal. He carried hope. The hallways buzzed with the usual after-school noise, lockers slamming, distant laughter, footsteps echoing against the linoleum. Jamal moved through it all with a new kind of calm, the medal tucked beneath his jacket, a quiet weight against his chest. It was no longer just a symbol of victory in the ring, but a reminder of battles waged far beyond the ropes. He caught glimpses of familiar faces, some still carrying whispers of yesterday's confrontation, others offering brief nods or tentative smiles. The atmosphere had shifted, subtle but undeniable, like the first crack of dawn after a long night. At the corner, a group of students gathered, their earlier sneers replaced with a hesitant respect. One of the boys who had mocked him before stepped forward, voice low but sincere. "Jamal, I didn't get it before. That medal, it means something, so do you." Jamal met his eyes steadily, voice calm. "Thanks. It's more than just a medal. It's proof I don't give up." The boy nodded, the tension easing between them. Another student, a girl with thoughtful eyes, added quietly, "We've all got fights we don't show." Jamal smiled softly, the warmth genuine. "Yeah, and sometimes it's the quiet ones who fight the hardest." The crowd began to disperse, the echoes of change lingering like a whispered promise. Jamal felt the weight of the moment settle deep, a quiet reclaiming of space, dignity, and self. The road ahead was long. The fight was far from over, but for the first time he was ready. Jamal stood by the old gym's entrance, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the cracked concrete. The roar of distant cheers echoed faintly from inside as students finished their practice. His fingers brushed the UFC medal tucked safely inside his jacket pocket, a symbol not just of victory but of survival. Silent battles fought long before the crowd ever saw him step into the ring. Coach Carter approached. Quietly, his footsteps steady, eyes filled with a mixture of pride and concern. "You ready, Jamal?" Jamal nodded, swallowing the knot in his throat. "I've got something to prove, not just to them, but to myself." Inside, the gym smelled of sweat, leather, and determination. Jamal wrapped his hands meticulously, each layer a small ritual of focus and resolve. The weight of expectation hung in the air, thick but not suffocating. The bell rang sharp, signaling the start of the session. Jamal moved with purpose, each punch and block a dialogue, not just with his opponent, but with the doubts and fears he'd carried for years. His body remembered every lesson, his spirit pushed harder. Between rounds, Coach's voice cut through the noise, steady and guiding. "It's not just about power, it's about control, about knowing when to strike and when to stand your ground." Jamal nodded, breath heavy, but resolve firm. "I'm not fighting just for myself anymore." Coach smiled, a flicker of hope shining through. "Good, because when you fight for something bigger than yourself, no one can break you." As the session ended, Jamal's gaze was fierce yet calm, a warrior shaped not just by physical battles, but by the quiet strength of his heart. Amal sat alone in the quiet corner of the school library, the afternoon light filtering softly through the tall windows. His fingers absent-mindedly traced the edges of his UFC medal resting on the table, a silent reminder of battles fought beyond the ring, battles that no one else saw. Miss Daniels approached gently, her footsteps almost inaudible on the carpeted floor. She pulled out a chair and sat beside him without a word, offering the kind of presence that said, "I see you." After a long pause, she spoke softly, "Jamal, you carry more strength than most people ever will. But strength isn't just about fighting. It's about knowing when to stand your ground and when to forgive yourself." Jamal looked up, eyes heavy but honest. "Sometimes I wonder if all the fighting changes anything. If anyone really sees me beyond the fights, the medals, the struggles." Miss Daniels smiled with quiet warmth. "I see you. And I believe those who matter will see you too. The world can be slow to understand, but your truth has power. It's not always loud. It can be quiet and steady, like a river that carves through stone." A brief silence hung between them, filled with hope and unspoken fears. Jamal's voice was barely a whisper. "I want to believe that. I want to keep fighting, not just for me, but for everyone who's been told they don't belong." Ms. Daniels reached out, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "You already are fighting, Jamal, every day in ways most don't notice." Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting the room in golden light. Jamal looked down at his medal, feeling its weight, not as a burden, but as a beacon. The hallway buzzed with the end-of-day rush, lockers slamming, voices overlapping, footsteps pounding against the tiled floor. Jamal moved through the chaos, the medal hidden beneath his jacket, but heavy with meaning. The eyes that followed him held less mockery now. Some bore grudging respect, others quiet curiosity. Ahead, a group gathered near the entrance, the same. Faces from before. The leader stepped forward, voice low but sincere. "Jamal, about what happened." Jamal stopped, steady and calm. "Yeah?" The boy hesitated, searching. "Maybe we were wrong. That medal, it means something. So do you." Jamal's gaze was steady. "It's more than a medal. It's proof I don't give up." The group shifted, tension easing, replaced by a fragile respect. A girl with thoughtful eyes added softly, "We all have fights no one sees." Jamal smiled gently, warmth breaking through. "Sometimes the quietest battles are the hardest." The crowd began to disperse, but the moment lingered, a silent reclaiming of space and dignity. Jamal's shoulders lifted slightly. The fight wasn't over, but now he carried more than a medal. He carried hope. The gym was alive with the clatter of weights and the sharp thud of gloves striking heavy bags. Jamal's breath came steady as he wrapped his hands, each layer a promise of focus and determination. The medal lay folded in his gym bag, a symbol of battles fought both inside and outside the ring. Coach Carter approached quietly, eyes calm but watchful. "You ready?" Jamal nodded, muscles coiling like a spring. More than ever. The bell rang, slicing through the noise. Jamal moved with precision, every jab and block a conversation, silent but fierce. The sparring partner pressed hard, but Jamal's mind was clearer than ever. Each strike was more than physical. It was a refusal to be defined by fear or judgment. Between rounds, Coach's voice cut through. "It's not just about power. It's control, restraint. Knowing when to fight and when to stand your ground." Jamal's breath was heavy, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. "I'm fighting for more than myself now." Coach smiled, pride in his voice. "Good. When you fight for something bigger, no one can break you." As the session ended, Jamal's gaze was steady, a warrior shaped by struggle and quiet strength, ready for whatever came next. The classroom was mostly empty now, the soft rustling of papers the only sound. Jamal sat at his desk, the weight of his UFC medal resting quietly beside his notebook. His eyes traced the faint scratches on the desk's surface, a mirror of the unseen battles he fought daily. Ms. Daniels approached gently, pulling out a chair. She sat beside him without a word, offering quiet support. "You know," she said softly, "strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet moments, the ones no one sees, that shape us most." Jamal looked up, tired but attentive. "Feels like I'm fighting a battle no one wants to see." She nodded. "That's because you're fighting not just for yourself but for everyone who's been overlooked or silenced." He smiled faintly. "I want to be more than just the kid with the medal." "You already are," she said, warmth in her eyes, "and you have the courage to keep fighting." The bell rang, signaling the end of the day. Jamal stood, feeling lighter, not because the fight was over, but because he had found a quiet strength within. The hallways buzzed with the after-school rush, lockers slamming, laughter bouncing off the walls, groups gathering and breaking apart. Jamal walked steadily, the medal hidden beneath his jacket, a quiet anchor amid the chaos. Faces turned, some with lingering judgment, others with a flicker of respect. The air between them was charged with change, subtle but undeniable. Near the lockers, the boy who had mocked him before stepped forward, voice hesitant but sincere. "Jamal, about yesterday." Jamal stopped, eyes steady. "Yeah?" The boy shuffled, then said, "Maybe we were wrong. That medal, it means something. So do you." A small nod from Jamal, calm and sure. "It's more than just a medal. It's proof I don't give up." The crowd shifted, tension easing as a girl added softly, "We all have fights no one sees." Jamal smiled, warmth breaking through years of doubt. "Sometimes the quietest battles are the hardest." The group dispersed, leaving a lingering sense of respect and possibility. Jamal's shoulders lifted slightly. The fight was far from over, but now he carried more than a medal. He carried hope. The classroom had emptied, desks pushed back, sunlight fading through the windows. Jamal sat alone, his UFC medal resting on the desk before him, a silent witness to his battles, seen and unseen. The weight of it was more than metal. It was pride, pain, and perseverance. Ms. Daniels entered, quietly, her presence gentle yet firm. She sat beside him, folding her hands calmly. "You carried yourself well today," she said softly. "Sometimes strength is quiet, but it speaks louder than words." Jamal looked up, eyes tired but honest. "It feels like fighting every day, against the world, against the silence." She nodded. "And that fight matters. You're not just fighting for yourself, but for those who've been overlooked." He reached out, touching the medal lightly. "I want to be more than a symbol." "You already are," she smiled. "Keep standing, keep fighting." A quiet peace settled in the room as the sun dipped low. Jamal rose, shoulders steady. The journey was far from over, but now he carried more than a medal. He carried dignity reclaimed. The end.